慢来，
好
没关系。
，OK，
毅力。
take it easy, I like it. 谢谢。Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. My name is Alan and this is my life in Taiwan, where I share some of the interesting aspects of life here, living and working as a teacher in the beautiful country of Taiwan. Sometimes I share the culture, sometimes I share the food, but recently I've been answering some of the big questions that people ask me about life here in Taiwan. And in my previous video where I was talking about when I may leave Taiwan, I flippantly mentioned that I chose to educate my son in South Africa, which was a comment that actually raised more questions than it answered. Therefore, I'm here today to answer that question and tell you why, as a teacher working in Taiwan's education system, that I decided, along with William's mum, that we would allow her to take William out of Taiwan's education system and educate him back in her home country of South Africa. So let me come straight out and give you my very simple answer. Taiwan students study way too hard and are put under huge amounts of pressure from a very early age, and I just didn't want that for my son. I am a cram school teacher here in Taiwan, and until I arrived here in 2008, I didn't really know what a cram school was. The word cram just didn't really exist in my vocabulary, and if it did, it had somewhat of a negative connotation of a student cramming as much information into their brain as they could before a big quiz because they hadn't studied enough throughout the year. But of course, it would be stupid of me to bite the hand that literally feeds me, as the cram school I've worked for the past 11 years has given me an amazing foundation on which to build a life here. And I do feel that when cram schools get it right and are managed well, they are an amazing resource that can sometimes, especially at elementary level, can educate the students to a much higher standard than they would get in their government schools. I can probably explore that point more in depth in a future video, but whatever the positives or negatives of cram schools and how they compare to government schools, the system here in Taiwan is just not what I wanted for my son William. So what is the system here, or at least what are the basics of it? Well, kids can enter kindergarten in yo-yo band from as young as just 1 or 2 years old. And I have heard anecdotal stories from foreign teaching friends about kids in their classes learning English while still wearing a nappy diaper. And from kindergarten, they'll then enter elementary school at age 7, junior high around 12 or 13, and then senior high at 15, 16, and of course then on to university. And all throughout those years, the kids are pushed and pushed towards their final goal, which is known as their 学测, which is the exam that kids take around about when they're 18 years old in order to choose which university that they qualify for. The 学测 is kind of the equivalent to the UK's A-levels, or kind of like the SATs in America. Not too sure about that one. And beginning in kindergarten and lasting all the way through to senior high school, the amount of time the kids actually spend in school is enormous here in Taiwan. Kids will usually go to school at 7:30 a.m. in the morning, and depending on what grade they're in, after they've finished their government school, they'll head straight to their cram school. And they'll stay there up until 9. Oh my God. And they'll stay in their cram school until about 9 or 10 o'clock at night, probably a little bit earlier if they're elementary school students. They might leave 6 or 7, but 11 or 12 hours of study in one day is absolutely normal for a Taiwanese student. When I tell my niece and nephew back in the UK about this Taiwanese school schedule, they are absolutely horrified. As for them, a typical school day begins at 9 a.m. and finishes at 3 p.m. and then they're off to drama club, dance club, sports club, scouts, or whatever extracurricular activity they have planned for each day. So any Westerners watching this, you may not need any further explanation as to why I don't want this for William. It's just not the way that we were educated as kids, and as such, it's not the way we would choose to educate our kids. But having said that, of course, every individual is different. And I do have several Western friends here with children and families, and they're educating their kids in the Taiwanese system. And they speak very highly of it. And having met their kids, I can see that they're not being negatively affected at all. There are Western kids flourishing in the Taiwanese education system. But I firmly believe that for William, and to match his personality, he needs to be getting educated in South Africa, where he can climb trees, go to school with no shoes on, comes home covered in dirt with a black eye after an overly competitive rugby match, plays tennis, cricket, soccer, football, whatever you want to call it, all of which are educating him in how to win, how to lose, how to be a team player, how to encourage other people, to be brave, to be humble, to be kind, and most importantly of all of this is taking place outside of a classroom in the beautiful countryside school in Pretoria, South Africa. Now, I know that yes, there are schools like this in Taiwan, such as the forest schools, the Shenling Xiaoshui, where the students actually have more freedom and more control over what they learn. But then, of course, these students have to re-enter the mainstream education at high school and face all of the problems that will entail. Not to mention the ridiculous prices of some of these schools that I just can't afford. So is this my answer because I'm a hippie dad and all I want for my son is for him to be free and love one and all? Well, no, of course not. I want the best for my son, and I do want him to have a great education. If he can be a doctor in the future, I would love it if that's what he wants to do. But in the same breath, if he wants to join the Royal South African Ballet Society, if there is such a thing, then I would totally support him in that and be the number one. I can't do it. I would support him in that and be cheering him on from the front row. I just want my son to be happy and experience as much of life as possible without all of the pressures and burdens that I feel the Taiwanese education system gives students at the moment. One thing I do want to mention is that I often hear people comparing internet studies about how Singapore's math is better than Taiwan's, but Taiwan's is better than China's, and China's is better than Japan's. Well, for me, I think so. So what? What does it matter if a person has excellent math if they're not a nice person, or they don't know how to win or lose a game gracefully? I strongly believe that the elementary years of a student's life are when their personality is formed, and that's who they become for the rest of their life. Therefore, I just want William's education to turn him into a nice guy and be happy with what he wants for his life. And who knows, maybe when it comes time for choosing a high school, we'll give him a little bit more freedom and choice of his own, and possibly he'll choose to come and study in Taiwan alongside his dad. I'm sure my Bushiban boss will give me a good discount on his English classes. But in all seriousness, if that's what he wants, then we'll allow him that freedom to choose and allow his education to evolve into whatever he chooses for himself as and when he's old enough to decide. So I'm not actually sure if I've covered all of the points that I wanted to talk about, and if you think that there's something important about this topic that I've missed, then please drop a comment down below and I'll join the discussion. Or as always, if you disagree or you think there's some huge mistake that I've made, then again, let me know down below and I'll happily stand corrected. William, if you're still watching this, and I'm sure you're not because I know that Roblox is way more entertaining than Daddy at the moment, I just want to say that ek en jou ma is so baie trots van jou en alles wat jy doen is awesome. Keep up the good work, big boy, and I'll see you in Taiwan soon. But anyway, as for now, time to end this video, say goodbye. Thanks so much for watching to the very end of the video. My team, VVVIP, I cannot tell you how much I appreciate your support. If you haven't already subscribed, then do so now. I always forget to tell people to do this. Subscribe, share, like, tell a friend, tell your dog, write me a letter, do what you want. Be happy, make someone smile today. I don't know what I'm talking about. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time in My Life in Taiwan. Peace. $5分钟就好了，5分钟我拍影片。OK。 好，5分钟我走了。
你哪一国人？
英国。
哦，英国人。
England，yeah，住在台湾很久。
几年了
？11年。
哦，很久了。
对，这个是我 YouTube 的频道。
YouTube。
对。
哦。
OK。这是5分钟离开。
OK。
先生，谢谢您。
好。